Channel Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's over the defending national champions, the Alabama Crimson Tide. This team was outstanding last season. They were 13-0 overall. They went undefeated, won the national championship. So, overall for Alabama, this was just an outstanding season. Really, this was probably one of the better seasons I've seen out of the Crimson Tide in a while. This team definitely produced a ton of great NFL talent for the future. With Mac Jones and Naji Harris and Devonta Smith, and those are only three of the names that are going to be outstanding in the future in the NFL. So this Alabama team was pretty outstanding last season, but how will they be in 2021 and why I think this team could definitely make another national title run in the 2021 season is what we're going over here today. We're going to go ahead and get started with your season trends from 2020. Once again, this team was extremely consistent last season. They blew out just about every single opponent. Really, the only close game that this team played was against Florida in the SEC title game. 52-46 was the final score there. So, as long as you win the game, that's all that matters. But this team just went above and beyond that all season. Blew out Georgia 41-24. They beat LSU 55-17. They also beat Notre Dame in the semifinal game 31-14. Beat Ohio State in the CFP championship 52-24. So, obviously, Alabama over the course of the season was just outstanding. With the amount of wins and the amount of blowout wins that this team played in a very tough conference, let me remind you, Alabama was just definitely the best team in the nation last season. There was no doubt about that, just based off of, one, the amount of talent that this team had, and two, the margins that this team was winning by. Once again, the amount of talent that this team had last season is definitely going to show in the NFL in the near future. But as for 2021 now, of course, here's the returning production. You lose your starting quarterback, Mac Jones. Mac Jones was outstanding last season. He was just about as good as it gets. 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a 77% completion rate, which that's pretty outstanding. That's definitely that is the highest completion rate last season in the nation. So there you go. Mac Jones was the most accurate quarterback in all of college football last year. As for the touchdown interception ratio, that's another thing you got to really note here. He had a 41-4 touchdown interception ratio, which is pretty outstanding. So that's going to be a tough loss there with Mac Jones. But I think Bryce Young is going to do just fine at the quarterback position for this team. Bryce Young is a former 5-star quarterback out of high school. Bryce Young is, if you look at any quarterback in Alabama over the past decade, they've all been successful. Like Tua, he's in the NFL now. Of course, you also got, it's not just Mac Jones who's also good. You also got Jalen Hurts as well. He used to be an Alabama quarterback. So, Alabama has continued year after year to bring in an outstanding quarterback and develop the quarterbacks extremely well. And I think Bryce Young is definitely going to be the next quarterback and the next big name in Alabama football. But as for Naji Harris, you do lose him. He was your top running back last year, put up just right around 1,900 yards, 30 touchdowns for Naji Harris last year. So that will be a tough loss. Brian Robinson, though, is likely going to be your top running back next season. Of course, you got an interesting running back situation there, but Brian Robinson did put up 500 yards and was your second running back last season. Devonta Smith, who's your Heisman wide receiver, obviously, who is going to have a very bright future in the NFL, can guarantee you. Put up over 1,800 yards of only receiving yards. That is pretty outstanding. 24 touchdowns as well over the course of the season for Devonta Smith. So that's obviously another tough loss there. But John Mechie's coming back. Jalen Waddle, he was your third wide receiver. He was injured for a good chunk of 2020, but he will not be back. So it looks like right now, John Mechie's going to have a big workload going into next season. 900 yards, 6 touchdowns. So overall, this offense looks pretty good, I'd say. But you do those 3 offensive linemen, 1 defensive lineman, then 2 linebackers, 1 in the secondary as well. So, for Alabama, if you're looking at any other team, if this was the returning production for any other team other than Alabama or a team with bad recruiting, I'd say, this is not very good returning production just because of the amount. You're losing your top running back, your top wide receiver, etc. But the thing is about Alabama is this team has got a tremendous amount of depth across the board. This team brings in outstanding recruiting classes. They've got the best recruiting class for 2021. And it's been like that. This team has had a top recruiting class for many years in the past. So, Alabama's got a huge amount of depth, and that's why I'm not really concerned about this team is because, even though they're losing a ton of talent here, there's no doubt that this team is losing quite a bit of talent. They've got a huge amount of depth, and I think this team should be just fine if you're looking at it depth-wise. But looking at the potential, this team has definitely got another national title run, I think, in the books for next season. I mean, next year, I think with Bryce Young, this team should be just fine to make another run for it, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Alabama win the SEC again next year, just because of, once again, the amount of recruiting and the amount of great recruits that this team has and the amount of depth in general that Alabama's really got on both sides of the ball. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch for Alabama once again next season. But looking at your schedule now, you start the season against Miami. That should be an interesting matchup in a neutral location there. Miami's going to be a good team next season. Do not sleep on that matchup. Derek King and Miami will be a tough team for sure. I really do think. It's just a matter of whether or not Alabama can get off to a good start with their new quarterback and kind of a new offense in a few areas. But as for then the next week, you got Mercer. I mean, if you played at your 100%, you could probably beat Mercer by 70 to 80 points. Then you got Florida, of course, on the road. You got Southern Miss as well after that. So you do have a couple of tough games there in your September. Miami and Florida both are going to be pretty tough games. Florida on the road could be a tricky one just because, I mean, once again, it's in the swamp, so that could be a tougher one there. Florida won't be as good next season, though. I can guarantee you that team is losing quite a bit, especially Kyle Trask. That's going to be a tough loss, I think, for Florida. But do watch out for that matchup. That's going to be a tough one there. Then you got Ole Miss, of course. That could come to be a tough one, too, as well. But you do have it at home in Tuscaloosa, so nothing much to worry about there. You got Texas A&M on the road, Mississippi State on the road, Tennessee, LSU, you got them at home this year. Then you got New Mexico State, Arkansas, and then Auburn to finish out your season. So as for your first 4 games in your September, all wins. I think Miami could be a somewhat close game. I think Alabama's going to win it by maybe 10 to 20 points or so. I'm going to keep it as a green win just for now, meaning I think Alabama's going to win it by at least 14 points. But could be an interesting matchup, though. I think Derek King and Miami, that team should be one of the top ones in the ACC next season. Mercer, easy win, no-brainer. Florida's going to be a close one, I do think. I think Alabama's going to get the win there, but it will be a bit closer just because it's on the road, and also, I mean, it's still at the beginning of the season, so you never know what can happen there. But I do think Alabama wins it, but it'll be a close one. Southern Miss then, obviously another win for Alabama. So you're going to start off the season 4-0. As for your October, you got 4 games in there, and you do have a bye week at the end of October. But Ole Miss, that's going to be a win. I think Ole Miss could be a good team next season, though. I could see 7 to 8 wins out of that team, but I just think Alabama is too good of a team. They're going to get the win pretty easily there. Texas A&M, I don't know about Texas A&M next season. That's probably one of the teams that I'm most uncertain about going into next year just because, I mean, they lost Kellen Mond, and the quarterback situation is very uncertain in Texas A&M right now. So overall, I think that could come to be maybe a close matchup if that team's good, but I still think Alabama's going to get the win. Mississippi State's going to be a win. Tennessee, also another win. So you're going to start off the season 8-0. As for your final 4, you've got LSU then. That should be an interesting matchup there. Watch out for that game, though. I think LSU is going to be right back to being a big contender in the SEC next season. I mean, even though they were down in 2020, that team is going to be right back to being a relevant team next season. But it is going to be a close matchup. I think Alabama does get the win. With having it at home, that's going to definitely come to be a big help. But, yeah, once again, you're going to get the win there. New Mexico State's going to be a win. Arkansas is going to be a win. And then Auburn on the road to finish out the season. I could see 7 to 8 wins, maybe even 9 out of Auburn. That's another team that I'm kind of uncertain about. But I do think that'll be a win for Alabama either way on the road in the Iron Bowl. So your record prediction is 12-0 for Alabama next season. Good news for your Alabama fans. I think Alabama is definitely going to be right back to being a big contender. I just think, I mean, Bryce Young, even though the quarterback situation is a little bit uncertain right now with Bryce Young, I mean, we've never really seen him play a full season of collegiate football. But I think that he's definitely got a huge amount of potential. He's a former 5-star. I mean, he's got all the keys to success to be the next big name at the quarterback position for Alabama, and it's going to be fun to watch for sure. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Alabama. If you appreciate this preview, yes, leave a like on it. Subscribe as well if you're not already yet, as it does help out the channel. But then again, I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and thanks for watching.